Welcome to week two. We're going to cover the second half of chapter six. Very first thing it talks about is something called overloading methods. Overloading constructors, which basically constructor is a method. So just realize we can take this same ideal and use it on a method as well. So if we take a look, here I have what's called the bank account. So here's my class bank account. I've got my instance variable balance. It's a double. Notice it's private. And then here's my constructor. It says public bank account. Notice there's nothing being passed in. And all we do at this case is if nothing's passed in, we set balance to 0. But if you notice, if you come down here, I have another public bank account. Identical names, same as the class. This time I'm bringing something in, a double start balance. This basically then takes the balance, our instance variable, and loads it with the starting balance. And if I look down here, I still have another one. It's called a bank account string. Now notice, I'm bringing in one variable, or argument I should say, and here I'm bringing in one argument. How does it know which constructor to use? Well, again, it looks at the signature. In this case, if the signature has nothing in it, the arguments, it calls this constructor. If a double is being passed in, this constructor will be executed. If a string is being passed in, it will call this one. I could actually do something like this. I could say start balance. Okay, so this particular constructor now has two arguments in it. So again, if I have a signature of a double and a string, it's going to call that constructor. If I have just a string, it's going to call this constructor, and if I have a double, it's going to execute that constructor. So if I go over here to the account test, it's a void main, so it's executable. So I say decimal format dollar, so here's a decimal format class that basically, if I come up here, yep, here's a decimal format import. And I'm going to instantiate it as a new decimal format, and it's pound, comma, pound, 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 dot, 00. Input, use the J option pane. What is your starting balance? Type that in. Now look, here I have bank account. Now if I have a class, which is what this is, and I don't see it up here in the import, you can look over here in the package and you will see that class. So here's the class. I'm going to call it account. I'm going to instantiate as a new bank account, and I'm going to have the input, which is a string. So I come down here and say input, how much did you get paid this month? I say account.deposit input. So the deposit looks like that is probably a method that's in there. Yep, there it is. There's the deposit. And Chap should pay, and how much is your pay increased, and go ahead and put that as input as well for a withdrawal. and then at the end it will tell you how much you have balance left. So we can actually put in how much you deposit, how much withdrawal, and at the end, at the end it will basically show how much you have in your balance right now. So if we go ahead and run this, it comes up and says, okay, what is your account starting balance? I'm going to say $10. So $10. How much did you get paid this month? I'm going to say $150. And your pay as a deposit, your current balance is $160. Okay. How much I can withdraw? Well, I'm going to withdraw $25. Click OK. Your balance is now $135. So pretty simplistic. And the thing I want to kind of point out here, you'll notice that all this account test is doing is just getting information from the user and then passing it on to the bank account class. Notice that when we go to the bank account class, it does everything. It does the calculation for the withdrawal. It does the so the great thing about this bank account is we could actually utilize it in pretty much any other project, and it has all of the methods and calculations that it needs. Now let's change account test for just a second here, and this time I'm going to say double AMT, and down here I'm going to say AMT equals double dot, so parse, no, parse double, there we go. And we're going to basically put in input. Okay. So now what I have is I have the amount, which is a double, and down here I'm going to, let me duplicate this line. Let me comment that one out, and this time I'm going to say amount. So now I want you to take a look. See this line I commented out? It's got input. That's a string. This is a double. Two different signatures. So again, what's going to happen here? Well, when I run this, I'm going to type in so in this particular case, so if we take a look over here, in this case, the first one, if I typed in a string, it basically converted it. It basically said the balance is equal to double. So it parsed it for me. Or if I parsed it over there, it went ahead and set the balance. So it used this constructor. They both pretty much do the same thing. So it's kind of nice because now this particular class, once we create an object, so this object can actually receive a string or it can receive a double, and it will convert them both, or the double doesn't have to be converted, but it will convert the string to a double, or it just accepts a double and basically goes on. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of a good way to code in that sense. So so again, as you can see here, we've got 4 different constructors depending on the signature. It will go ahead and execute the right constructor. Now, just let me back up a little bit. If I were to do something like this, though, if I were to say wrong one. Okay, let me try that again. So public bank account and I'm going to say string name, and I hit the enter key, and I say string name equals name. Now it's blowing up. Why? Because both of these, even though this is a string, and string name, they both have the same signature. That means it's called bank account and it's receiving one string. Now I could, if I wanted to, I could do this. I could have it, and that's going to be just fine. So that's going to work just fine. So not a problem there. So signature means everything when we're talking about constructors. Okay. If we go over to the scope of the instance fields, it basically talks about who basically can see them, and that means basically talking about the public and the private, that type of thing. So since they're private, only the class can see them. So, and that's what we want, because we want to control how and when these instance variables are basically used. Let's go ahead and stop right there. We'll upload the video, and then we'll basically start again on shadowing on page 385.